The wind always carried the smell of gunpowder on the training range. Elena Hayes, just a private, just another uniform, moved down the sandy lane with a stapler in her hand and cardboard silhouettes tucked under her arm. She wasn't here to shoot, not today. She was here to replace torn targets, clean up brass, and keep the range moving while the real shooters did their practice. Her boots crunched in the dirt as she worked. 30 paces down, she set a fresh paper target on the wooden frame, the silhouette of a man with his arms outstretched. She smoothed it flat with her palm, stapled each corner, and stepped back. From where she stood, the world looked sharp and quiet. She could hear the soft chatter of rifles further down the range, controlled bursts, rhythm in the distance. "Hey, Hayes," a voice called deep commanding. She turned and squinted into the sun. A group of Navy SEALs had taken the far lane for the day. You could always tell them apart. The easy confidence in how they stood, the quiet way they carried their rifles as if the steel itself had weight in history. Among them was Chief Warrant Officer Maddox, scar across his jaw, posture like a wall. He raised a hand and motioned her closer. "You've been watching us," he said, not accusing, not kind, just stating it. Elena's throat tightened. "Just while I work, sir." He studied her, eyes sharp. "You ever shoot beyond your qual?" She shook her head. "No, sir. Just standard rifle marksmanship." Maddox glanced at the younger SEAL beside him. "Gibbs, hand her the MK-13. The younger SEAL hesitated, then passed over the long, heavy sniper rifle. The weapon felt enormous in her hands, longer than her arm, heavier than her training M4 by far. She almost faltered under the weight, but tightened her grip. "Set it up," Maddox ordered. She crouched awkwardly, laying the bipod into the dirt. The glass of the scope shimmered as she adjusted it. "You don't hand a kid a weapon like that," Gibbs muttered. "She's not a kid," Maddox said simply. Elena swallowed. Her heart thumped so hard she could hear it in her ears. She wasn't supposed to be here, wasn't supposed to even touch this rifle. She was just a range hand. But now every eye was on her. "Target, 700 meters," Maddox said. "See the steel plate with the orange mark?" She nodded. "Hit it." Her palms slicked with sweat. She pulled in a breath, settled her cheek on the stock, and let the world narrow to the reticle. The target was just a speck out there in the distance, dancing in the shimmer of heat. She steadied, exhaled, squeezed. Crack! The recoil slammed her shoulder, thus puffed off the dirt mound. Silence for a beat. Then the sound came. Clang, the steel ringing faint across the valley. The SEALs froze. Gibbs blinked. "No way." Maddox's scar pulled into the hint of a smile. Again, Elena chambered another round. Her body trembled, but her focus sharpened. Breath, trigger shot. Crack. Clang. 2 for 2. The laughter that broke out wasn't mocking this time. It was stunned, sharp, disbelieving. "Looks like we found a shooter," Maddox said. Elena pulled back from the scope, her pulse racing. Her hand shook as she set the rifle down. "I was just replacing targets," she said, almost whispering. Maddox shook his head. "Not anymore." By the next morning, the story had spread through the camp like wildfire. A range hand had outshot 2 SEALs on a test lane. Soldiers loved stories like that, little cracks in the wall of hierarchy. But for Elena, the attention felt like a weight. Everywhere she went, whispers followed. "That's her, the one who hit 700 meters. Just a private, just a target girl." It wasn't long before Maddox called her in. His office was bare, just a map pinned with thumbtacks and red string. He leaned over the desk as she entered. "You got steady hands," he said without preamble. "That wasn't luck yesterday." She stiffened. "Sir, I was trained just like everyone else." "No," he said, eyes narrowing. "You see wind, don't you?" She hesitated. Maddox nodded, reading her silence. "Most shooters, they aim and hope. You read it. The mirage, the drift. That's a gift." Elena didn't know what to say. Her gift had never been called that before. In basic, she'd been marked as above average. At qualification, she'd passed cleanly. But she'd never been pushed further. "Here's the thing," Maddox continued. Tomorrow, my team's running a live drill. Urban assault. You're coming. Her heart dropped. Sir, I'm not. You're now. Maddox cut in. You're in the stack. You'll have Overwatch. Her mouth went dry. She wasn't trained for Overwatch, wasn't cleared, wasn't even supposed to touch their rifles. And yet the way Maddox said it left no room for refusal. The next day, dawn came cold and sharp. They loaded into the Humvee, rifles clutched tight. Elena sat pressed against the door, the MK-13 across her lap. Every bump in the road rattled her bones. Gibbs leaned across from her, expression dark. "Don't screw this up," he said. She nodded stiffly, throat dry. When they arrived, the village mock-up stood like a ghost town. Concrete shells of buildings, broken windows, a maze of alleys. Targets had been set up, wooden silhouettes dressed in ragged uniforms, some with rifles, some without. "You're up top," Maddox told her. "Tower 2. Cover the approach." Her boots felt heavy as she climbed the stairs, rifle slung across her back. The wind cut across the tower's edge as she crawled into position. She laid the bipod down, adjusted the scope. Below, the SEALs formed up and advanced. "Moving," came Maddox's voice on the radio. Elena tracked them through the glass. Her heart pounded, every second stretched thin. Then, shadows moved in the corner of her scope. Figures that weren't targets. Live actors? No. Too fast. Too sharp. And then she heard it, real gunfire. Crack, crack, crack. The drill had just become something else entirely. Maddox's voice roared over the radio. "Contact." Her finger froze on the trigger. This wasn't cardboard anymore. It was blood, dust, and life in her hands. And it was only the beginning. Elena froze, cheek pressed to the stock, breath caught halfway in her chest. The crosshairs of the scope wavered over a man darting between the broken walls of the mock village. His rifle was real. His movements sharp, trained. This wasn't staged. "Contact! Contact!" Maddox's voice thundered again, echoing through the headset. She hesitated. This wasn't cardboard. This wasn't a drill. This was live fire. "Elena, do you see him?" Maddox barked. His voice wasn't panicked. It was a command. "Yes," she whispered, her lips dry. "Then take the shot. Now." Her pulse slammed in her ears. The man ducked behind a wall, peeked out, raised his weapon toward Maddox's team below. Elena squeezed the trigger. Crack! The recoil jolted her shoulder. Dust spat from the wall, inches from the man's chest. He flinched back. "Adjust. Wind's at your 10 o'clock." Maddox yelled. Elena licked her lips, realigned, focused. The man leaned out again. She steadied, exhaled, squeezed. Crack! The bullet punched through his shoulder. He spun, crumpled. For a beat, silence reigned in her head. She had just shot a real man. "Elena, stay with me." Maddox snapped, voice anchoring her. "Two more on the balcony, northeast building." She swung the scope. Sure enough, two armed figures raised rifles, aiming down at the SEALs advancing across the street. She fired again, miss. Fired again, steel clanged as one dropped. The second ducked. Her breath shuddered, tears burning her eyes. She wasn't trained for this. She wasn't ready. But below, Maddox's men pushed forward, trusting her cover. Depending on her. "Elena, you keep us alive or we don't make it out," Maddox said, calm, steady, absolute. The second gunman peeked out again. She steadied, lined up the shot, whispered to herself, "Breathe, just breathe." Crack! The man's head snapped back, body toppling from the balcony. The headset crackled. Good hit. For the first time since it began, Elena's hand steadied. She wasn't just the girl replacing targets anymore. By the time the smoke cleared, the mock village looked more like a war zone. Wooden silhouettes lay shattered, but among them real bodies bled into the dirt. The SEALs regrouped at the extraction point, weapons still up, every eye sharp for more threats. Elena climbed down from the tower, rifle heavy on her back, knees shaking. Her boots hit the dirt, and the world tilted for a second. She had killed. Not cardboard. Not drills. Flesh and blood. Gibbs met her at the bottom of the ladder, face unreadable. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at her. Finally, he muttered, "Not bad for a target girl." Elena's throat tightened. She wanted to be proud, but all she felt was the weight of those men's eyes in her scope, the final twitch when the bullet struck. Maddox approached, calm as ever. His scarred face gave away nothing. "You kept us alive," he said. "That's the only thing that matters." She wanted to argue, to tell him she hadn't been ready, that her hands were still shaking, that she could still feel the trigger against her finger. But his eyes silenced her. Back at base, rumors spread even faster than before. Not only had she outshot SEALs, she'd gone live under fire and held her ground. Soldiers whispered her name now, testing it in the same sentence as legends. But Elena didn't feel like a legend. That night, alone in her bunk, she stared at her hands. They still trembled. Her stomach twisted every time she remembered the faces in her scope. She pressed her palms together as if to pray, but no words came. Sleep finally dragged her under, but the dreams weren't kind. She saw muzzle flashes in the dark, felt the weight of unseen eyes, heard the clang of steel targets turning into screams. At dawn, Maddox was waiting outside her barracks. "Gear up," he said. Her heart sank. "Again, you think the enemy's gonna wait until you're ready?" Maddox said flatly, "You're coming with us. Full op." This wasn't a drill. This wasn't cardboard or staged ambushes. This was the field. Elena swallowed hard, then nodded. The Humvees roared to life, kicking dust into the morning light. Elena climbed in, the MK-13 across her lap. Maddox glanced at her once, his scar pulling into the faintest shadow of a smile. "You're in this now," he said. "Sink or swim." As the convoy rolled out, Elena pressed her palm against the rifle's cool steel. She wasn't a spectator anymore. She wasn't just fixing targets. Now, she was part of the fight, and she didn't know if she would survive it. The Humvee rattled across uneven dirt roads, dust clouds swirling into the morning air. Elena sat in the back seat. The MK-13 cradled across her lap like a weight she hadn't yet earned the right to carry. Her heart thudded in time with every bump in the road. Beside her, Gibbs leaned against the door, eyes half shut as if he could sleep through anything. The casualness of it made her uneasy. Maddox sat in the passenger seat up front, scanning the horizon, his posture sharp and unyielding. They were headed beyond the wire, into territory where maps weren't reliable, where danger wasn't simulated. Elena had trained for years, but never for this. The radio crackled. Possible insurgent movement near objective echo. Approach with caution. Her fingers tightened around the rifle. Every word of the radio transmission made the world feel heavier. "Echo," Maddox said, turning halfway toward her. "That's your kill zone. We'll set you up on Overwatch. If they're there, you'll see them first." Her mouth went dry. "And if I don't?" Maddox's eyes narrowed slightly. "Then we'll see them too late." The convoy halted near a crumbling ridge overlooking the valley. The air smelled of dust and burned fuel. Maddox gestured for Elena to move. She followed him up the ridge, each step crunching in gravel. The vantage point opened wide below her, a scatter of mud brick huts, a broken road, shadows that seemed too still. "Set up," Maddox ordered. Elena dropped prone, rifle bipod planted against the stone. She adjusted her scope, the crosshairs sweeping the valley. Her breath slowed. At first, it looked deserted, nothing but silence and heat. But then, movement, a glint of metal near the huts, a man shifting into cover, another crouched behind a wall. Her pulse spiked. "I've got eyes," she whispered into the mic. "How many?" "4, maybe 5, all armed." Maddox nodded once, calm. "Hold until I say." Below, the SEAL team advanced, rifles up, boots pounding in rhythm. The figures in the huts began to stir. Weapons raised. "Elena," Maddox said, voice low but clear. "Now." She didn't hesitate. The first shot cracked through the valley, dropping a man before he could fire. The second spun another into the dirt. Gunfire erupted, a storm of echoing shots. SEALs returned fire, moving from wall to wall. Elena kept her crosshairs steady, squeezing off rounds one after another, covering angles the team couldn't. Then her scope caught it, a fighter climbing onto a rooftop, RPG on his shoulder, sighting the Humvee. Her chest clenched. She steadied, exhaled, squeezed. The man toppled before he could fire. "Nice work," Maddox said, tone almost approving. "Keep your eyes sharp. They'll try again." The battle raged for minutes that felt like hours. When the dust finally settled, the huts were silent, smoke curling into the air. Elena's cheek was raw from the rifle stock. Her trigger finger ached, but her scope no longer showed threats, only stillness. The SEALs regrouped. No casualties. Not one. And it was because she had been there. As they moved back to the convoy, Gibbs gave her a look she didn't expect, something between respect and curiosity. "You sure you've never done this before?" he asked. Elena swallowed hard. Not like this. But inside, something had shifted. She had crossed the line. The ride back to base was quiet. Too quiet. Elena sat rigid in the Humvee, eyes locked on the rifle resting across her knees. Every bump in the road jolted her thoughts back to the faces she had seen through the scope. Some fell before they ever knew she was there. Others had locked eyes with death an instant too late. The SEALs bantered softly among themselves, their calm unnerving her. They spoke of tactics, angles, and future ops as if it was routine. To them, maybe it was. To her, it was still raw, still burning. At base, the debrief was short. Maddox gave his usual precise report. Objective echo neutralized. 0 friendly casualties. Overwatch successful. That was it. Clinical. Efficient. But when the room cleared, Elena remained. Her throat tightened as she stared at Maddox. "You call that successful?" He looked at her steadily. "We came back alive. That's success. They had families," she blurted. "Those men, Her voice broke. Maddox stepped closer, his scar catching the harsh fluorescent light. His voice dropped low. "You think I don't know that? You think every man we drop doesn't leave someone behind? That's war. It's ugly. It's cruel. But if you hesitate, our families end up grieving instead." She bit her lip, tears pricking her eyes. "I didn't sign up for this. I was supposed to fix targets, not." "But you did," Maddox interrupted sharply. "You did sign up. The moment you took that rifle. The moment you pulled the trigger." Silence pressed heavy between them. Finally, Maddox's tone softened. "Look, you've got instincts most people never find. You saw angles my men missed. You covered us without breaking. You've got the makings of sniper. But only if you can carry the weight." Elena's chest ached. She wasn't sure if she wanted this burden. But the truth lingered. She had kept them alive. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces again. But alongside them, she saw Maddox's men walking away unharmed, alive because of her shots. Her hands trembled as she reached for her rifle, propped against the wall. She ran her fingers along its cold steel, whispering under her breath, "If I'm in this, I'll carry it. All of it." The next morning, Maddox found her already at the range. Not replacing targets this time. Training. Her hands were steady, her eyes sharper. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was preparing. The mission came without warning. Maddox stormed into the barracks before dawn, his face unreadable. "Up, all of you. We've got a situation." Elena jolted awake, boots hitting the floor before her mind caught up. She glanced at Gibbs, already strapping on his gear, calm as ever. "What's happening?" she asked, pulling her vest on. Maddox's tone was clipped, urgent. "Hostiles are moving a convoy through the northern pass. Intel says they're transporting high-value assets, possibly hostages. Our job is to intercept." The word hostages sent a chill through her. By the time the Humvee skidded to a stop near the cliffs, the sky was bleeding orange. The air was thin and sharp at this altitude, every breath burning her lungs. Maddox crouched beside her, laying out the plan on a tablet. The pass is narrow. They'll bottleneck here. We'll hit them hard. Elena, you'll have overwatch on the ridge. If those vehicles don't stop, you'll put rounds into the drivers. Her throat tightened. A shot at that angle meant distance, far more than she'd trained for. How far? Maddox met her eyes. 3,800 meters. The number crushed the air out her chest. It was insane, beyond the limit of what most could do, beyond what even SEALs boasted about. She shook her head. You don't get to doubt now, Maddox cut in. You'll either make history, or you'll watch our men die. Which one are you choosing? The choice wasn't really a choice. She swallowed hard, crawling toward her position. The ridge opened wide beneath her scope, the convoy just faint dots moving against the jagged path. She steadied her breathing, adjusting for wind, heat shimmer, the impossible drop of gravity across that distance. Below, the SEALs were already in place, crouched among the rocks. Elena, Maddox's voice crackled in her headset. We've got 30 seconds. They're not stopping. Her finger hovered near the trigger. Sweat dripped into her eyes, stinging. Her heart raced so fast, she feared it would shake her aim. She whispered to herself, exhale, break it down. One shot. The crosshairs danced over the lead driver. She calculated again. Wind 3 knots west. Altitude correction, Coriolis effect. Her brain felt like it would burst. 10 seconds, Maddox said. Her lungs burned as she held steady. 5. The world went silent in her ears. She squeezed. The rifle thundered. Through her scope, she saw the impossible. The driver slumped forward, the truck swerving violently, blocking the pass. The convoy screeched to a halt. Chaos erupted. Fighters scrambled, SEALs surged. Elena worked the bolt and fired again, dropping another gunman before he could raise his weapon. The battle unfolded below, deafening and raw, but she barely registered it. Her world was locked in the scope. Every pull of the trigger a tether between life and death. Minutes stretched into eternity. When the dust settled, the convoy was theirs. The hostages, 2 terrified aid workers, were pulled free alive. Elena, Maddox's voice broke the static. Not cold this time. Not clipped. Something else. You just did what most men dream about. You just saved them. Her cheek lifted from the rifle stock, raw and bruised. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of knowing she had crossed into legend. She had made the shot that shouldn't exist. The base celebrated that night. The rescued hostages were safe. The operation was flawless. And Elena's impossible shot was already spreading in whispers, a story too wild not to repeat. But while the others laughed and traded war stories, she sat alone at the edge of the range, the rifle propped beside her. The shot haunted her, not because of the man she killed, but because of the power she now understood she held. At 3,800 meters, she had controlled the outcome of an entire battle. She had decided who lived and who didn't. Maddox found her there, silent against the night sky. He didn't speak at first, just lowered himself onto the bench beside her. You carry it well, he said finally. Her jaw tightened. I don't know if I want to. He studied her, the scar on his face twisting as he gave a faint, almost fatherly smile. That's why you can. The ones who want it, who crave the power, they're the ones who can't be trusted. You understand the cost. She turned, searching his eyes. So what now? I'm not even supposed to be here. I was supposed to replace paper targets. Maddox chuckled softly. Paper doesn't bleed. You were meant for this, Elena. I've trained hundreds of shooters. Few had what you showed out there. Even fewer had the heart to question it afterward. That's what makes you dangerous, and what makes you needed. The words settled heavy in her chest. She thought of the hostages' faces, pale but alive. She thought of the SEALs walking back unharmed. She thought of every shot that carried a story no one else would ever hear. She exhaled slowly, her decision forming not out of pride, but out of duty. "I'll stay," she said quietly. "I'll keep carrying it. For them." Maddox nodded once, as if he'd known all along. "Good. Because this war doesn't end tomorrow. And neither does your place in it." The stars glittered cold and sharp above them. Elena rested her hand on the rifle, no longer as a borrowed tool, but as something she had earned. She wasn't just the girl who replaced targets anymore. She was the sniper who made the impossible shot. And though the weight would never leave her, she had chosen to bear it.